Hey you guys, my name is Aubrey and welcome to my channel. Okay, so today's video is definitely for my PoTS people, my extra salty dudes. In today's video, I am putting out hopefully some insanely just helpful information on the tests that we do commonly encounter when we're trying to get a PoTS diagnosis or just information. And so I'm hoping that what I go through today, just walking through my experience with the tilt table and stress test for my PoTS diagnosis, is going to hopefully calm you guys down a little bit, just help you mentally prepare for what you're in for if you are scheduled for these tests. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. That's what you're in for. Let's get into this. I'm going to start off by sharing my experience with the stress test. Disclaimer here, of course, where I got my testing may not be exactly the same as where you get your testing or do it the same way and all of these things. So this is my personal experience with this testing. I do really think that it should give you a general idea of what to be prepared for. Hopefully just clear the air of maybe some horror stories or creepy stuff that you've heard and all of that, because I definitely encountered a handful of those before my testing, and you know, you hear people say one thing and other people say the opposite, just how bad it is. Yeah, but just in terms of like the actual process of the test, my personal experience didn't quite live up to the horror stories. Praise the Lord. I don't know why I crossed my fingers there. I just am hoping to give you some comfort and make you feel not as alone as you have to go through this testing that we have to go through. My experience with the stress test is, first of all, before going in, I was thinking if you Google stress test, it's going to tell you that get on a treadmill, and as time goes by they increase the speed as well as the incline. And hearing this, I was like, this is gonna be rough, because my exercise tolerance is just, it's not there, you guys. It's sad, but it's not. Coming from a previous cross-country runner who's now had PoTS for 1.5 years, I was just like, this is gonna be a rude awakening as to like where I physically am actually at. That's what I was thinking going in, was they'd hook me up for all the stuff and I'd get on a treadmill and I would just like push myself to the limit. Here's what's different. I went in and it actually wasn't a treadmill that they used to conduct the stress test. It was a bicycle, like a stationary bike that you see in the gym or whatever. Pretty much all that happened is they checked my blood pressure on each limb. So check blood pressure, right arm, left left leg, and then they did that before and after to compare while I was hooked up to the test. I had a oxygen, no, not oxygen like going up into my nose, like just a big old mask that was measuring my oxygen intake and outtake. I'm guessing it wasn't really supplying me with any oxygen or relief in that sort of way, but it was measuring that. I know they were measuring my heart rate somehow, because that's how, you know, if your heart rate gets past a certain number, they like cut you off. They're like, it doesn't matter if you can keep going, it's not safe for you to keep going. And also blood oxygen, that's all that I'm aware that they were measuring during the test. I don't know, I'm not a medical person. That was just the impression that I was under, but also just like how many minutes you make it kind of thing. The dude who did my stress test was just super chill and nice, and he was like, so most people make it 5 to 8 minutes. And my response was, oh, surely I can do 10 minutes on this bike. Like, I was thinking I could do 10 minutes on a treadmill if I had to go in as hard as I can. My goal is to make it 10 minutes. I made it 7 minutes, you guys, and he would not tell me my time. Like, throughout the test, I asked once, he couldn't let me know how far I'd made it kind of thing, so it wouldn't affect the results as far as how hard I pushed myself. And I did. I pushed myself as hard as I could go. Now that I know it was 7 minutes, it definitely felt longer than 7 minutes. I felt felt pretty decent to begin with, like not really struggling at all. The main problem that I got into pain-wise is I have hypermobile EDS as well, and so my hips and my knees were just, I'll say my hips and my knees are just killing me a bit with the bending and repetitive biking motion or whatever. So that was my main source of discomfort. I did have some problems breathing, of course, with shortness of breath. They tell you to breathe in and out of your mouth the whole time because that is how they're going to be able to most accurately measure the oxygen. Getting out of breath just talking about it. I was doing pretty decent. I mean, pushing through probably until I got to like, literally those last 30 seconds is like I came up against a wall and I was just done. Like I could not move, and it was pretty bizarre. I never encountered anything such like suddenly coming up against a wall any of my athletic career leading up to this. If you told me at like 6 minutes and 30 seconds, I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm totally gonna make it to 10. Well, 15 seconds later, I was just out of it. I was like, there's literally no way I can move my legs anymore, and I just could not get any air in. The most unpleasant part of the test did have a bit of a cool down after that. Afterwards, of course, I laid down and they took my blood pressure, all of the spots. So then I was just sitting there for a good 10 or 15 minutes trying to recover. Felt pretty sucky, you know, not the best, but like not horrible or anything. I felt like I would have expected to after going through a stress test. So I ended up finally standing up because I was feeling the same, not really getting any better, but I was like, I can probably just go ahead and walk out. But when I stood up that first time, it was like I hit that wall again. When I stood up, my knees just felt super weak. I did not pass out, my knees did not buckle, but I quickly sat back down. My technician in there who'd run the test was like, oh my goodness, your face just got like fiery red in 0.2 seconds. I was like, yeah, I can't walk. So I did end up having to be taken out from after the stress test in a wheelchair. Of the two tests that I will be speaking about today, I will say that the stress test did impact me the most. There was definitely discomfort, but mostly just like pure weakness and like, bleh, I'm a noodle person type thing. That was my experience with the stress test. I will add a quick note that I found out since then that I do have hyperadreneric PoTS. Through all of my testing, I did not pass out, even though the technicians were like really expecting me to pass out because my blood pressure just went that low. Do understand that the hyperPoTS makes you less likely to pass out. Going on to most likely the one that you guys all came here to hear about, that is the tilt table test. Getting hooked up for the tilt table test, I was just like surrounded by cords. Oh my goodness, they had like continuous blood pressure monitoring on my fingers, blood pressure cuff on one of my arms, all around my head. Like, I would describe it as, see those pictures of old braces and you just have like the giant headgear on and all of that. That's what I felt like. Did have oxygen, continuous monitoring, blood pressure, heart rate, blood oxygen, oxygen to my brain. That's what the head thing was, because the dude told me, he's like, we'll get a 10-second warning if you're about to pass out, like I'll know before you do. That's so crazy, just because they can see the amount of oxygen going to your brain. Technology blows my mind when it comes to all this stuff. I have all this stuff like all around me, and like I really can't move. I'm just laying there like surrounded by cords, strapped in. They put straps over knees and around my stomach. One thing that I do really want to add in about this test is that I was informed prior to the test the clinic that I go to does not inject patients with nitrogen. Causes your blood vessels just to relax even more, so that the blood pooling and everything is going to be that much more extreme for them to get the measurements while they're taking the test. And he said 90% of clinics do that. My clinic had decided that it wasn't necessary for them to get the information they needed, and it just made the test a lot harder on people. It's like, I guarantee the horror stories you hear have been on people that like have had a tilt table test done where they inject the nitrogen prior to the test to exacerbate the symptoms. So I don't mean to put that out there to scare anybody. Do have a test and you know that they're going to inject you with nitrogen, do be aware that that is going to exacerbate your symptoms all the much more. There's a chance that your reaction would be more severe than mine. I still did have a pretty like severe reaction. Another important piece of information is the test in sum is that you lay down, they hook you up to all this stuff. You lay there, they get your resting everything for 5 minutes, tilt you up at an 80-degree angle, and that angle is very strategic. It's where you're like completely on your heels. For whatever reason, that makes it to where your leg muscles aren't going to contract, just completely going to be reliant on your autonomic response. How effective or non-effective is your autonomic response? Then you are held there at that 80-degree angle for 20 minutes, put back down 5 more minutes, and the test is over. They're not gonna sling you around or anything. I mean, 20 minutes is a long time to be standing there without any help from your muscles. So if you know PoTS, like, you would never just stand somewhere still for 20 minutes. Not anything you would ever do by choice. Your muscles aren't able to help you out or anything at that angle. You're just gonna like tick off all of your symptoms, and they're gonna be able to write them down all at once. The order in which they present themselves in this test really helps your doctors understand the order of severity of each symptom. I was standing there and pretty much all my symptoms come up. They checked my blood pooling in my feet and my hands after about 2 to 3 minutes just to see how significant it was. I couldn't like bend my head down to see my feet, but my parents were in there and they were like, your feet were real purple, real blue and smurfy. And like I could see my hand that I was holding here, it was definitely very purple. It's always an interesting thing to see your hands turning blue purple. It's just like, are you okay, dude? Praise the Lord, I did not throw up. I wasn't that concerned that I was gonna pass out, whereas the nausea has been, I usually don't throw up when I get nauseous. I just like sort of wish I could so I could relieve myself of it, but I don't. My main concern was that like I was gonna be strapped down to this table and this guy was gonna have to like hold a vomit bag in front of me, and that just would have been awkward and disgusting. So I'm so glad that I didn't throw up on him. Those were definitely prayers answered. It's okay. That's their job. Their job is to do this test. So remember that. They've seen it all. They've seen people pass out. They've had to catch throw up in a bag before. They've seen people struggle with this test. They know what you're going through, and I'm sure they're super sympathetic for you, or they should be. A really interesting thing, there's a certain neurotransmitter that tells you to breathe, right? And when standing, mine failed. They had to tell me like 5 to 7 times to remember to breathe. I'd just be standing there like feeling pretty crappy because all my symptoms are happening, and he'd be like, remember to breathe, like you haven't been breathing. And I was just completely unaware that I wasn't breathing at all. If he'd asked me that I was breathing, I would have told you. But then when he told me, I would be like, oh yeah, I do need to breathe. No wonder I get short of breath sometimes, probably because I just don't remember to breathe.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
So yeah, but I survived the test. I really didn't feel all that different afterwards, but there was a good bit of relief from my symptoms. Like when I was laid back out, it wasn't like kept staying at that intensity, and so that was really good. And I was able to walk out of the doctor's office and everything after the tilt table test, unlike with the stress test. And my parents were there too. Was super sympathetic. He's like, this is not going to be a pleasant thing, but I assure you it is so worth the information that it's going to give us to be able to help you in treatment. That's definitely something to keep in mind. It's not going to be pleasant. Expect what you feel like standing on a normal day, but just worse. That's what I would say. But they are so worth all the information that is going to be retrieved from them in order to help you. That's why I was excited going into them, not because I was looking forward to the pain or discomfort or anything, just because I knew that going through these tests was bringing me one step closer to hopefully healing. Yeah, that has been my experiences with the stress and tilt table test. I did participate in 3 other tests, an autonomic, neurocognitive, and nerve damage detection test. But if you would like to hear about them, please comment below and I would be super happy to make a video just walking you through the process and my experience, just like I did for these. Thank you guys again so much for watching. I do plan on putting out a lot more PoTS, EDS content. If you think that any of that would be helpful, please subscribe, please share, and press that like button so that the people who are looking for this information can find it easier here on YouTube. I love you guys, I'm here for you, and I will talk to you later.